Okay, in this module, we went through a lot about container controls and the dynamic generation of child controls based on data binding, as well as collection controls and how they really worked. So first we looked at content controls and items controls and their pivotal role in the dynamic UI composition based on data binding. We saw that content controls render out content presenters, and it's inside the content presenter that the actual data-driven content, such as a data template, gets rendered. Likewise, in an items control will render out an items presenter, and that items presenter will be responsible for rendering out individual item containers. Inside those containers eventually are often content presenters that show the content for an individual data object. Next, we reviewed combo boxes and list boxes, mainstays of data binding, and just made sure you were familiar with all the key properties associated with data binding, including item source, display member path, selected value path, selected value, selected item, and so on. Next, we took a look at tab controls, and you saw that they can be data-driven as well, especially for dynamic child view containment scenarios. You can point to a collection of view models or data objects that are going to be rendered through a data template, and the views that get rendered inside the tabs can be driven by data templates, as well as a data template to render the header in the top part of the tab that shows at the top of a tab control by default. We drilled into data grids and got familiar with the key properties associated with data bindings and the things you could do there. Covered the fact that data grids are really just an items control that's going to render out rows for each of the items in the data-bound collection. Data grids are defined through columns, but the columns aren't really part of the data grid at runtime, as I emphasized. Column definitions result in rows and cells being rendered, so the bindings you specify at a column level really result in cell-level container bindings at runtime. As a result, certain kinds of bindings won't work in columns, specifically relative source bindings and element name bindings. For those, you can use a cell template. A cell template gives you full control of exactly what's going into a cell. You define a data template that contains the content you want to see in that cell, and that data template can contain whatever bindings relative to the data context of the row that you want. So if the row is a customer, you can point to properties on that customer, and any normal data binding should work there, including relative source bindings and element name bindings, because the cells are part of the visual tree, the columns are not. We also looked at the fact that data grid row detail templates allow you to provide a child panel that shows up associated with each row that you can populate with the data template with whatever structure you want in there. It could contain an entire data form. It could contain a child data grid. Anything you want to put in there, the data context for that row detail template will be the data-bound row object, such as a customer, and you can use any properties hanging off that customer to render out child details in that panel. Finally, we finished off with collection view source, and you saw that it gives you a very nice, easy-to-use way to sort, filter, group, and do master detail type setups when working with collections or multiple collections in your views.